If you want to know which fruits are actually worth using in Haze Seas and which ones aren't worth your time, you're in the right place. In this video, we're ranking every fruit from best to worst, breaking down how they perform in both PvP and PvE, so you can easily figure out which ones deserve a spot at the top and which ones fall behind. Not every fruit is built for the same job, and that's exactly what makes this tier list interesting. Some dominate player fights, while others are much better for grinding and taking on PvE content. We'll go through each fruit one by one, talk about its strengths and weaknesses, and help you decide which fruits are truly worth picking up for your own playstyle. Let's get started. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking fruits in Haze Seas. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The fruits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Mammoth, Buddha, Paw, Gas, Snow, Poke, and String. If these fruits had a dating profile, their bio would probably say, "I have potential, but you need to be patient." That pretty much sums up the C tier. None of these fruits are completely useless, but every single one comes with enough drawbacks to stop them from climbing any higher. Some are surprisingly fun in the right situation, while others are simply stepping stones until you find something stronger. Let's break them down one by one. Starting with Mammoth, this fruit never really finds its specialty. The damage is underwhelming, the area attacks are nothing special, and the utility is pretty limited as well. It is not terrible at any single thing, but it also does not excel anywhere. That combination keeps it stuck in C tier because there is always another fruit that performs the same job much better. Buddha is almost the complete opposite. It is actually fantastic when you are just starting Haze Seas since it makes early progression much easier. The problem is that once your collection starts growing, Buddha quickly feels outdated. It is a great training wheel, but you should definitely replace it when stronger options become available. Now let's talk about Paw and Gas. Paw can deal respectable damage in player versus environment combat, but its area coverage is simply too limited for efficient grinding after the early stages of the game. If enemies are standing close together, you will constantly wish your attacks reached a little farther. Gas has a different problem. Its abilities have noticeable startup animations, making your attacks easier to predict and dodge in player versus player fights. That weakness hurts it quite a bit against experienced opponents. However, do not write it off completely because Gas performs extremely well in player versus environment content, where enemies are much less likely to punish those slower attacks. Finally, we have Snow, Smoke, and String. Snow is another beginner-friendly fruit that makes early grinding comfortable thanks to its reliable player versus environment performance, but it struggles to stay relevant later on. Smoke is, unfortunately, one of those fruits that never really finds a strong place in either player versus environment or player versus player combat. As soon as you unlock something better, there is very little reason to keep using it. Then there is String, which might be the biggest sleeper in this tier. It offers excellent mobility both during fights and while traveling around the map, and it can deal respectable damage as well. Its biggest weakness is the lack of strong area attacks, which limits its grinding speed. Even so, String is seriously underrated, and if you enjoy player versus player combat, it can surprise a lot of opponents despite sitting all the way down in C tier. The fruits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Flame, Ice, Light, Operation, Magnet, Soul, and Tremor. B tier is where things start getting interesting because these fruits are no longer just good enough. Most of them can comfortably carry you through a huge portion of Haze Seas, and some even stay useful well into the late game. They all have clear strengths, but each one also has a flaw that keeps it from reaching the top tiers. Think of this tier as the point where choosing the right fruit starts depending on your playstyle instead of simply picking whatever has the biggest numbers. Let's kick things off with Flame. It is a solid player versus environment fruit that offers respectable damage along with some useful mobility, making it a comfortable choice for newer players. The only problem is that Magma exists. Flame feels like the younger sibling that is trying really hard but can never quite outperform its older brother. Ice is another reliable pick. While it is slightly weaker than some of the other fruits in this tier, it still performs very well in player versus environment content and remains perfectly capable in player versus player battles. Light also deserves plenty of praise. It combines incredible mobility for both traveling across the map and fighting other players while still dealing excellent damage per second. On top of that, it is one of the best beginner fruits you can get. Things get a little more mixed with Operation, Magnet, and Soul. Unfortunately, Operation is the biggest disappointment here. Its damage is simply too low, and its abilities fail to provide meaningful value in either player versus player or player versus environment combat. It is one of those fruits that sounds cooler than it actually feels to use. Magnet, on the other hand, hits much harder. Its abilities deal impressive damage against groups of enemies, making it a fantastic player versus environment option. The downside is that its attacks are fairly slow, which makes landing them consistently against skilled player versus player opponents much more difficult. Soul also leans heavily toward player versus environment gameplay, with huge area attacks that clear groups of enemies with ease. It even provides some mobility while traveling, although it lacks movement abilities that really help during combat. The last fruit in this tier is Tremor, and it has a very specific reason for earning its spot. If you enjoy letting the game do some of the work while you relax, Tremor is an absolute dream. Its enormous area attack can be spammed over and over, making it one of the best fruits for automatic farming sessions. It may not dominate every situation, but for efficient grinding, it is incredibly hard to ignore. Overall, B tier is packed with dependable choices that can serve you well for a long time, even if they all fall just short of becoming truly elite. The fruits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Gum, Venom, Wolf, Leopard, Magma, Shadow, and Doge. Dadu. A tier is where the real heavy hitters start showing up. These fruits are powerful enough to carry you through almost every challenge Haze Seas throws at you, and in the right hands, some of them can even compete with the top tier options. The only reason they stop short of S tier is because each one has a small weakness that keeps it from being absolutely dominant. If you end up using any of these, you are definitely making a strong choice. Let's start with Gum, because this fruit has one of the most interesting progressions in the game. Reaching Gear 5 completely changes how it performs, turning it into a fruit that can compete with the very best in both player versus environment and player versus player combat. The catch is that getting there takes a serious amount of time and effort. Before that transformation, both the base form and Gear 4 feel surprisingly weak in almost every situation. It is a long-term investment rather than an instant powerhouse. Venom deserves much more attention than it usually gets. It is one of the most underrated farming fruits thanks to its 3 huge area attacks that let you clear enemies incredibly efficiently. If you are actively playing instead of relying on automatic farming, Venom can even outperform options like Tremor. Wolf also earns its place here with a transformation that works extremely well in player versus player battles while remaining perfectly capable for player versus environment content. Leopard follows a very similar formula. It is not quite part of the current meta, but it is still an excellent transformation of fruit that gives player versus player fans a powerful alternative while staying respectable for grinding. Magma continues to prove why it has always been a fan favorite. It delivers impressive player versus environment performance at a much lower investment than many higher end fruits, making it feel like a budget version of Darkness. While it does not control crowds quite as effectively, it makes up for that with reliable damage and surprisingly useful mobility. Shadow is another strong all-rounder. Its fast area attacks make grinding feel smooth and efficient, and it can absolutely hold its own in player versus player combat as well. It may not completely dominate either category, but it performs consistently no matter what you are doing. Finally, there is Dough, a fruit that many players expect to see even higher. It offers incredible attack range, excellent mobility, and plenty of flexibility during fights. The reason it falls just short of S tier comes down to efficiency. The fruits above it either clear player versus environment content a little faster or provide more devastating combo potential in player versus player battles. Even so, Dough remains a fantastic choice that is capable of winning fights and clearing content with ease. If A tier tells us anything, it is that being one step below the best still means you are incredibly powerful. The fruits in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Dragon, Phoenix, Electricity, Okuchi, and Saturn. Now we have finally reached the fruits that everyone hopes to unlock. S tier is reserved for the absolute monsters of Haze Seas, the fruits that can dominate entire servers when used properly. Whether you care about grinding, player versus player combat, or simply dealing ridiculous amounts of damage, these are the options that sit at the top of the food chain. They are not completely flawless, but their strengths are so overwhelming that their weaknesses rarely stop them from taking over a fight. If your goal is to own one fruit and never look back, this is where you should be looking. Dragon comfortably claims the #1 spot. After its rework, it even surpasses Gear 5 in overall power. The only downside is that its hitboxes and movement can occasionally feel awkward, making it a little clunky to control. Even with those issues, nothing else comes close to matching the raw destruction it brings. Dragon Hybrid and Full Form unleash enormous area attacks with incredible damage, making player versus environment farming incredibly efficient. In player versus player combat, Dragon is just as terrifying thanks to what is arguably the strongest move spamming toolkit in the game. Its only real weakness is that the base form feels noticeably less impressive before you transform. Phoenix is another incredible choice, especially if your main focus is player versus player combat. When paired with Darkblade version 2, it becomes one of the strongest dueling setups available. The combination of fast dashes, unpredictable mix-ups, and devastating combo potential makes it a nightmare to fight against. It can still perform reasonably well in player versus environment content, but its true value shines in competitive battles. Electricity is arguably the king of grinding. Its attacks come out incredibly fast, hit hard, cover huge areas, and have excellent range, allowing you to clear enemies with almost effortless efficiency. On top of that, its base moveset is already fantastic, meaning you do not have to rely on complicated transformations before it starts feeling powerful. The remaining top tier contenders are Okuchi and Saturn. Okuchi is an outstanding transformation fruit that excels in player versus player combat thanks to its strong abilities and reliable pressure. Its player versus environment damage falls slightly behind Dragon, although the full form transformation helps close that gap significantly. In certain matchups, Phoenix might outperform it in duels, but when you look at overall performance across the game, Okuchi remains one of the safest and strongest picks available. Saturn rounds out the list with exceptional player versus player strength. Its transformation, combined with high damage per second and relentless area attack spam, makes it incredibly dangerous in fights. The reason it does not rank higher for grinding is simple. Unlike fruits such as Shadow, Tremor, or Dragon, Saturn lacks an overpowered farming mechanic that lets it dominate player versus environment content. Even so, when it comes to fighting other players, Saturn is more than capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the very best fruits in Haze Seas. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.